Hey everybody, welcome to the 114th edition of Drive Thru Review. Today I'm going to talk about Hemloch. This is a two-player card game from John Cloudis, who runs and makes all the games for Small Box Games. Probably his biggest claim to fame is a game called Omen: Reign of War, which I played quite a bit of and I actually will review in the future. So this is, I guess, a follow-up to that. Now this game, if you're familiar with Omen, this game is not quite as complex as Omen. So I think I maybe like Omen better still, but this kind of fits sort of a different niche. This one feels more like a Cosmos two-player, like it would fit nicely in there. The theme of this one is a little bit darker, sort of. It's not really gruesome or anything. It just feels sort of like a darker theme. And the art is somewhat dark. I don't have any problem with it or anything. It's just, art is actually really cool. But this one actually, not to sell it short by calling it a Cosmos two-player game, because there is some nice layers of strategy here. So if you've played a game like Twilight Struggle or 1989, some kind of combat card-driven game, it feels quite a bit like that, sort of kind of condensed into sort of a short two-player card game that will take you probably a good solid half an hour once you get the hang of it. Not too much longer or too much shorter. It has sort of a length that you can count on based on how the things are scored and how the rounds end and everything like that. So let me show you how it works, and then I'll come back and tell you more about it. Okay, so here you can see all of the components of the game. Now each player is going to get a deck of cards, and now these are identical decks. They just have different backs on them. And so you can see there's a lot of really nice looking art here. So this is the Crone Elder, sort of a guy in the rain. And then, a shadow agent, different guys, just sort of a robotic guy. And now each player has the exact same makeup of cards here. Now these cards are actually come in sort of a couple of things you need to take note of. So you can see here you've got the cards faction up there. All the different cards have a different faction. And then you've got a number here, which is the amount of influence that this guy will give to one of these center locations here. And these 4 locations or villages or areas of the village that you're going to be trying to get control over. So this is the amount of influence it will give. And then each of these has a special ability. Like this guy says gain 1 potion. So you can see there's potions over here and trinkets. And I'll explain those in a minute. So there are 2 kind of special items you can get. Like this guy, the shadow agent. He's of this faction, gives 1 influence, and then he has discard 1 minion of your choice from the location where you play him. And these are all minions. So what you're going to be doing on your turn is you're going to get 2 actions that you can do. Now one action could be to draw a card from your deck. You're going to start with 5 cards, and that's pretty much the only way you're going to be able to draw cards. There are some effects and things like that that will let players draw cards during the game, but usually you got to take an action to draw a card. The other action you can do is to play one of your characters here to a location on your side of the board. So if we take a closer look at these locations here, you can see that each of these has a different shaped grid. So if you look at those, they all got the grid there with the different shapes. And then there's 2 sort of faction icons here. So you've got this one here that also matches the background color of the card. And they're double-sided, but it's the same on both sides. And so if you play anybody from this faction here, they're actually going to count +1 influence. So if I'd played this lady here, she normally will give 1 influence at any of the other locations, but here she's going to give +1. She'll actually be worth 2. And then there's another faction icon here that's more attached to this special effect zone here. So if you play a guy that is of this faction here, not only will be able to do the effect of the card that you played, but also the effect of the location. Now normally when you play a guy here, you're going to play that, and then you're going to just immediately take the effect of the card. But if you had played somebody of this faction, let's find somebody real quick here. So if I played this guy, this rotted cohort here, I'd play him there, and I'd do his effect, which is place 1 minion from your hand into any location. I'd play that, do this effect first, and then I'd do the effect here, which is each player draws a card. So that's the basic gist of what your turn is going to be. You're going to do 2 actions, either drawing a card or playing a card, or you could do, draw twice or play twice, and that would be your 2 actions. Now some things are going to let you to get these potions here. If you play a guy, and he may say, get a potion. So you can see this says flip this card face down to gain an extra action. And so you flip this down, and then you can take a 3rd action. Now you can only do that once per turn. Like if you had 3 potions in front of you, you couldn't go boom, 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 and take 3 whole extra action. You can only do that once. And then these trinkets here, there'll be other effects to get these trinkets. If you flip 2 of these, you can actually take somebody from your opponent's side and move it over to your side. So you get these and flip those face down and then go from there. So these actually are going to be worth points at the end of the game as well. So if a face-up one is face-up, it's worth 2 points at the end of the game. If you've used it and it stays face down, it's only going to be worth 1 point. Now there are other effects and things from the characters here that will flip these up, and so you can reuse them again or make them worth more points. Now the way the round's going to go is we've got this night deck here, which is of 4 cards. We've also got a day deck of 4 cards. Now these are identical to the 4 locations that are in the center of the board. And what the start player is going to do is he's going to shuffle up the night deck. He's going to flip a card over, and it's going to say the festival is in the courtyard. So we're going to find the courtyard here, and we're going to take this marker and put that there. So that means for this round, when a round is basically I take my turn, you take your turn, that's the end of the round, then nobody can play any cards here. Now there are card effects that will actually move this around, so you might be able to play a card there in that sense, but for the most part you're not going to be able to play any cards here. So I'm going to take my turn, my buddy will take his turn, and then I'll flip over another night card and it'll say this is in the boneyard. So we move this to the boneyard. Now nobody can play here, and so there's 1 for each. And so you're going to keep playing and taking turns and then flipping over all of these. Then once you've flipped over the 4th one, this last one is the alley maze. It'll be here. And then, after everybody's taken their turns, we're going to go through and score the influence at each of these locations. So let's say I had these 2 guys here. My opponent didn't get anybody there. Maybe I discarded him with some of these attack cards. I've got more influence than him, so I'm going to be able to place a house there. So let's say I chose the blue houses here. And I can put this in any of these grids here. So I'll do that, and maybe my opponent got, he won these 2, like so, and then maybe I ended up with the most influence here, so I'll put that one in the middle. And so after the end of the round, what the start player is going to do is he's going to take a day card that matches one of these locations, because these also match the city locations. Maybe I'll take this alley maze one. I'll pull out the alley maze of the night deck, and then I'll shuffle this day card in here. So I'll shuffle these up, and then we'll keep playing. Now before you keep playing, I should say that each player is going to have to discard half of their minions at each location rounded down. So that way you can't build up like a giant army that's totally insurmountable and it's pointless to go there. So everybody's going to reduce their minions here. They're going to go into a discard pile. And then we're going to start again. Now the other player is going to be the start turn, so he's going to get this deck and flip them over. So maybe he flips over the first card here. We move this to the spires. And then we play out 2 hands. He flips over the next one. Oh, this is the day card, and this is for the alley maze. So we're going to move this back to the alley maze. And then at the end of this turn, we're going to do another scoring. So we're going to check the influence again. Whoever has more influence is going to get to place out more of their houses. And then we're going to keep playing the round out. So we're going to do the next 2 nights here, and then that'll be the end of the week, sort of a 4-day week. And we'll score again. And then the other guy, who's the start player now, will take one of these, and then they'll replace a card here. So this is the courtyard. I'll replace that. So now in the 3rd round, we're going to go through here, and then as soon as we flip up a day card, play the round out, score it. Flip over another card, flip over another day card, do the round and score it, and then once we get through the week deck again, we're going to score it again. So we're going to score 3 times that round. So it gets more intense. Things become more and more fought after, and the scoring is going to come up more and more frequently. So that's really, really cool. And so basically you're going to keep playing until we add the 4th day card to this deck, which means it's full of day, and we just end it immediately. Or all of these little spots on these grids get filled up, or one player runs out of their houses, which means they probably won the game because they just dominated the heck out of everything. Or the game will end as soon as both the potions and trinkets are gone from the game. Now the way that you figure out who won the game is you're going to add up all the points for all the potions and trinkets you have. So, the face-up ones are worth 2 apiece, and the face-down ones are worth 1. And then you're going to take a look at these cities here, these locations, and you're going to total up the points. So what's really, really cool about this is you get 1 point for each house, but if a house is adjacent to another house of your color, they're going to be each worth 2 points. So there's sort of a little bit of area control that goes on here. So you can see it's really a good idea to get that central location there, because then you're going to be able to place adjacent to it. Or let's say orange is sort of, building a chain of guys here, like so. and then blue maybe comes in and he kind of gets more influence here, so he's going to cut them off at the pass, so to speak, so he can't just keep that chain running and things like that. So that's pretty cool. I really like that aspect of it. So the game's actually very, very simple in that way, that you're just going to play cards or draw cards, execute the effects of the cards, possibly the location as well, if the faction matches that. And then you just play till one of those end game conditions trigger, which seems like a lot, but they kind of make sense. And then, but what really you're going to need to do is really familiarize yourself with all of the different effects and the types of cards, how many there are of these. So some of these there's only a couple of, some of these like these shadow agents there's a bunch of, and just kind of when to play and when to sort of cut your losses. And the other thing is, like I said, there's an action to draw a card. So you can quickly, if you're not careful, run out of cards to play. And, there are other effects on some of the cards that let you draw cards and do all kinds of different things. Like this lady here will let you add one marker to that location. So if I play here, I put a marker there of my type. So that's really cool. But she's relatively weak. She's only a 1 influence, things like that. So that's pretty much the game. Okay, hope you enjoyed the overview. I quite like this game. It's not super, obtuse or anything to sort of penetrate and learn how to play. But there are a lot of good sort of, decisions and stuff like that have to be made as far as like, okay, I'm going to put a guy down here to, increase influence so that, at the end of the round when we score, I'm going to get that. But I may also want to play this other guy to trigger some effect that's either going to get me a potion or trinkets or maybe discard, a minion at some other location. So it does make it sort of, tough, I guess, to decide which card you're going to play. But it's not really that tough. I'm making it sound, like it's really complex or anything in that way. It's not super complex, but it's not super dumbed down or anything either. But it plays very short, so it's just very fun to play, And you've got to sort of keep in mind, what, cards they played and things like that. So, there's a couple cards that will copy other cards, and those shadow agents will just kind of discard other cards. And so you kind of have to keep that in mind. And then the whole area influence stuff is really cool, because if some guys sort of lock down a location, you can kind of let him have it and try to get a bunch of potions and things like that to get points at the end of the game that way. And then focus on maybe a location where you're going to get a lot of points, and then have some real sort of back and forth battles at another location. So it kind of plays out in a nice way that way. And then the whole thing where you're adding in the day cards to the night deck is pretty cool, because if you've got sort of a good foothold of some stronger cards there, you may throw in the day card for that deck, because you know that, okay, when I'm going to draw this day card, it's going to put that pawn on that location so that nobody can go there. And so now I'm going to cement that I'm going to score for that round and get the, with the little influence marker on there. So I really like that aspect of sort of, it's almost like a tug of war game, but it has all these other elements going on. It just keeps it really fun and interesting, and it's just it's a blast to play. So it's not really have that sort of epic, card effects and combo-y things like kind of Omen is, but it's totally its own game, and I quite like it, and I definitely recommend it. It does have, I wanted to say this, it does have a feel to me of Battle Line, if you've played that, where you kind of sort of have to hold back. So Battle Line, it's all about holding back and not really showing, am I going for a straight or 3 of a kind or whatever at this location, or at one of the pawns if you play Battle Line. And then this kind of has that same thing where you don't want to commit all your forces too soon, because you may get them stolen by the trinkets flipping over, or they may come out with a shadow agent and just jack your guy up. So it's sort of you have to figure out when to sort of commit to each of the different pawns or locations in the middle of the board. So I think that's really the key aspect of it that keeps me sort of interested in the game and things like that. So definitely take a look at it, and good recommendation for me. Thanks.